4:23 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. A duty officer at NORAD stares at a screen that refuses to make sense. The trajectory arc is clean. Too clean. The missile climbs through the thermosphere at Mach 23, its infrared signature burning white-hot against the black of space. Protocol demands verification. There is no time for verification. The officer's hand hovers over the red phone. In that frozen second, the mathematics of annihilation are already written. Impact in 11 minutes. Ground zero, undetermined. Yield, estimated 800 kilotons. The officer lifts the receiver. The call connects before the first ring ends. Across 3 time zones and a fortified bunker beneath Virginia bedrock, alarms cascade through reinforced corridors. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs is awake before his aide reaches the door. The words come fast and flat. Confirmed launch. Single ICBM. Origin, undetermined. We have 8 minutes. 8 minutes. That is the span between breakfast and apocalypse. Between normal and never again. The chairman does not ask questions. There are no good questions now. Only the sequence. Alert. Assess. Authorize. The protocol has been rehearsed 10,000 times. It has never been real until now. The president is airborne in 4 minutes. Marine One lifts from the south lawn with rotors screaming against the pre-dawn silence. Below, Washington sleeps. Traffic lights blink at empty intersections. A jogger checks her watch on the National Mall. A barista unlocks the door to a coffee shop that will never open today. They do not know. They cannot know. Not yet. The knowledge travels at the speed of classified communications. Secure channels flash with confirmation codes. DEFCON 2, then DEFCON 1, the highest alert level in American history. No drills, no mistakes. This is real. At 4:29 a.m., the missile begins its terminal descent. It sheds decoys and chaff, a cloud of reflective debris designed to confuse radar. The warhead separates cleanly, a cone of metal and physics falling toward the eastern seaboard at 15,000 miles per hour. Somewhere over the Atlantic, a decision is made. Interceptors launch from destroyers positioned in a defensive grid. SM-3 missiles scream upward, their motors burning trails of white fire into the stratosphere. The engagement window is 12 seconds. The probability of success, classified. The reality, unknowable until impact or interception. 4:31 a.m. The flash comes first, not gradual, not cinematic, instantaneous. A sphere of light erupts 30 miles offshore, directly above the continental shelf. The detonation occurs at 8,000 feet altitude. An airburst optimized for maximum thermal and blast radius. For 1/1,000,000th of a second, the fireball reaches 100 million degrees Celsius. Hotter than the core of the sun, the sky does not glow. It ignites. Every photon in a 50-mile radius is drowned in that terrible radiance. Shadows burn into concrete. Glass melts before it shatters. The shockwave follows 4 seconds later, a wall of compressed atmosphere traveling at 750 miles per hour. It strikes the coastline like the fist of God. In Virginia Beach, windows explode inward. In Norfolk, the naval base buckles. Steel warships lurch against their moorings as the harbor boils. The blast wave does not discriminate. Apartment complexes fold like cardboard. Historic churches dissolve into dust. The downtown skyline, 30 miles from ground zero, shivers and screams. Every car alarm triggers simultaneously. Every window facing east becomes shrapnel. The sound arrives last. Not a boom, a roar, a sustained, deafening howl that swallows every other noise. It lasts 11 seconds, then silence. The kind of silence that follows violence. Heavy, ringing, absolute. 17 miles inland, a woman wakes to her bedroom shaking. The walls crack. Picture frames fall. Her husband is already moving, pulling her toward the hallway, away from glass. They do not understand what is happening. The power is still on. The lights still work, but something fundamental has broken. They feel it in their chests, in the air pressure, and the way their ears refuse to pop. Outside, the eastern horizon glows orange and black. A pillar of smoke and fire rises into the stratosphere, mushrooming outward as it climbs. The woman reaches for her phone. No signal. She tries again. Nothing. Her husband turns on the television. Static. He cycles through channels. Static. Then, on Channel 7, a face. A news anchor, pale and shaking, reading from a sheet of paper. We have confirmation of a nuclear detonation off the coast of Virginia. I repeat, a nuclear detonation has occurred. This is not a test. Residents within 100 miles of Norfolk are advised to shelter immediately. Avoid windows. Move to interior rooms or basements. Do not attempt to evacuate unless instructed by authorities. Stay tuned for further. The broadcast cuts. The screen goes black. Then white noise. The woman looks at her husband. He looks back. Neither speaks. There are no words for this. No vocabulary. The script of normal life does not include this scene. They move to the basement. They bring water, blankets, a battery-powered radio. They do not know if they are dying. They do not know if they are safe. The only certainty is that the world above them has changed. By 4:40 a.m., the electromagnetic pulse has rippled across the mid-Atlantic. The MP effect, a secondary consequence of high-altitude detonation, fries unshielded electronics in a 200-mile radius. Traffic lights flicker and die. Hospital generators stutter. Cell towers overload and collapse under a tsunami of simultaneous connection attempts. In Washington, D.C., 120 miles from the blast, the power grid shudders. Substations trip offline in cascading failure. Entire neighborhoods go dark. The Capitol building switches to emergency power. Deep beneath the Pentagon, backup systems engage with mechanical precision. But the civilian world, the fragile web of infrastructure that makes modern life possible, begins to tear. At 4:43 a.m., the first retaliatory strike is authorized. The decision takes 90 seconds. 3 members of the National Command Authority confirm the order. The launch codes are transmitted. Deep in the wheat fields of Montana, silo doors slide open. In the cold waters of the North Atlantic, a ballistic missile submarine receives its firing solution. The missiles do not hesitate. They do not question. They simply obey. Within 6 minutes, 32 ICBMs are airborne, arcing toward targets on another continent. The logic of mutually assured destruction is no longer theoretical. It is kinetic. It is happening. But most people do not know this. Most people are still trying to understand the first explosion. In Philadelphia, a man stands on his apartment balcony, staring south. The sky is wrong, too bright, too orange. He films it on his phone, hands shaking before realizing the video will not upload. No internet. No service. In Baltimore, a mother wakes her children and herds them into the bathroom, the only room without windows. She does not explain. She cannot. Her voice is calm. Her hands are not. In Richmond, a police dispatcher fields 9,000 calls in 4 minutes. The system crashes. The screens freeze. The dispatcher sits in silence, listening to the dial tone, knowing that somewhere people are screaming into dead phones. At 4:50 a.m., the federal government activates the emergency alert system. Every radio, every television still functional, interrupts programming. A monotone voice, pre-recorded, delivers the message. This is an emergency broadcast. A nuclear explosion has occurred on the eastern seaboard. Multiple additional launches have been detected. Citizens are advised to seek shelter immediately. This is not a drill. Remain indoors. Avoid windows. Monitor this frequency for updates. The message repeats. Again, again, again. There's no additional information, no context, no reassurance, just a loop. The maddening mechanical loop. In living rooms across the country, families gather around radios, desperate for clarity. They hear only the same 30 seconds, endlessly recycled. Panic does not announce itself with screams. It creeps, it spreads. It multiplies in the silence between repetitions. By 5 a.m., The roads are clogged. Despite the warnings, despite the orders to shelter, millions attempt to flee. Interstate 95 becomes a parking lot. Cars inch forward, then stop. Drivers abandon vehicles and run. Run where? It does not matter. Movement feels like survival. Stillness feels like death. Gas stations are overrun. Pumps are ripped from their housings. Fistfights break out over fuel. Police respond to the first calls, then stop responding. There are too many calls, too many emergencies. The concept of law and order, fragile at the best of times, disintegrates under pressure. In grocery stores, the shelves empty in minutes. Not because of need, because of fear. People grab anything. Bread, batteries, bottled water, canned soup. They do not check prices. They do not wait in line. Some pay, most do not. Store managers lock the doors, trapping themselves inside with the mob. Glass shatters. Alarms wail. No one is coming to help. In suburban neighborhoods, families board windows with plywood. They fill bathtubs with water. They argue about whether to stay or go. The argument ends when the next alert arrives. 5:12 a.m. A second detonation. This time over the Great Lakes. The warhead airburst above Lake Erie, vaporizing millions of gallons of water in an instant. The shockwave rolls across Cleveland, Detroit, and Buffalo. Buildings sway. Bridges groan. The skyline cracks. This strike is smaller, 300 kilotons. But proximity negates the difference. Cleveland burns. The industrial corridor along the lakeshore, refineries and chemical plants, erupts in secondary explosions. Toxic smoke billows into the sky, mixing with radioactive fallout. The wind carries it south, toward Columbus, toward Pittsburgh, toward populations that do not yet know they are in the path. In New York City, the sirens begin. Not the familiar wail of ambulances, but the deep, guttural moan of air raid warnings. A sound most New Yorkers have never heard outside of movies. The subway system halts. 8 million people are told to shelter. But where? Apartments are not bunkers. Office buildings are not fortified. The best option is the deepest option. Basements, subway tunnels, underground parking garages. People descend. They crowd into stairwells and corridors, pressed shoulder to shoulder, breathing recycled air. Above them, the city waits. Manhattan has not been hit, not yet. But the logic of nuclear strategy suggests it is only a matter of time. 5:20 a.m. The third strike does not come. Instead, silence. A 10-minute gap. In war rooms and command centers, analysts argue. Is this a pause, a malfunction, a negotiation? The radar screens show no new launches. Satellites detect no further thermal blooms. But trust is gone. The absence of attack does not mean safety. It means uncertainty. And uncertainty in nuclear war is its own form of terror. Across the Atlantic, European capitals scramble. NATO convenes an emergency session. Article 5, the Collective Defense Clause, is invoked. An attack on one is an attack on all. But what does that mean now? What is the response to Armageddon? Fighter jets launch from bases in Germany, Poland, and the UK. They form defensive patrols, circling at 40,000 feet, waiting for orders that may never come. In Moscow, the Kremlin is silent. No statements, no denials, no confirmations. The global community demands answers. The silence is the answer. In Washington, the president addresses the nation at 5:35 a.m. The broadcast is audio only, stripped of ceremony and image. The video feed fails repeatedly, freezing, dissolving into static, then disappearing altogether. What remains is a voice, controlled and measured, carrying the weight of decisions already made. The words are precise, rehearsed, and unmistakably grave. My fellow Americans, we have suffered an unprecedented attack. A pause follows long enough to feel intentional. Multiple nuclear detonations have occurred on American soil. There is no attempt to soften the truth. The message continues, outlining response protocols, continuity of government, and mobilization of every available resource. The president urges calm, urges obedience. urges faith in systems that are already visibly failing. Shelter in place. Avoid unnecessary travel. Instructions meant for order delivered into chaos. The final line, "We will get through this together," sounds almost ceremonial, a phrase carried over from another era. The broadcast ends abruptly. No questions, no visuals, no follow-up. In living rooms, basements, and shelters, people stare at silent radios. The message does not reassure. It confirms. The nightmare is real. The unthinkable has happened. And the word together echoes hollowly in homes already cut off from the world. By 5:45 a.m., the fallout begins. Invisible, odorless, lethal. Radioactive particles, dust and ash from the explosions drift on the wind. They settle on rooftops, lawns, cars, and skin. People who fled outside are now contaminated. They do not feel it. Radiation does not burn immediately. It accumulates. It damages cells quietly, efficiently, irreversibly. In hospitals, the first cases arrive. Burns, lacerations, crush injuries. Doctors work without power, without supplies, without hope of resupply. Triage becomes a moral calculus. Who can be saved? Who cannot? The decisions are made in seconds. The guilt will last lifetimes. In rural areas, the chaos is different, quieter, but no less profound. Farmers watch the horizon glow. They hear the distant rumble. They know something terrible has happened, but information is scarce. Radio stations loop the same emergency message. Internet is gone. Phones are dead. Neighbors gather in living rooms, sharing what little they know. Speculation fills the void. Is it war? Is it over? Are we next? No one has answers. Everyone has fear. At 5:55 a.m., the power grid in the northeastern United States collapses entirely. Not from sabotage, not from a cyber strike, but from sheer overload. Demand spikes beyond anything engineers ever modeled. Millions of devices draw power at once. Backup generators roar to life simultaneously. Emergency systems designed to save lives instead strain the system to breaking. Substations trip offline. Transformers rupture in bright, violent flashes. Transmission lines sag, snap, and fall. The failure cascades outward, unstoppable, indifferent to borders or intentions. Within 3 minutes, nearly 80 million people are without electricity. The effects are immediate and intimate. Refrigerators fall silent, food beginning its slow spoilage. Electric heat shuts down in the early morning cold. Elevators freeze between floors, trapping the unlucky. Water pumps fail, pressure bleeding away from pipes and towers. Sewage systems stall. Traffic lights die, turning intersections into knots of metal and fear. The arteries of civilization, complex, invisible, long taken for granted, go cold all at once, as if a switch has been flipped on the modern world itself. In the final minutes of the first hour, a strange silence settles over the cities and towns. Not peace, not calm, just the absence of new shocks. The strikes have paused, or perhaps ended. Sirens fade, either silenced by damage or drowned out by exhaustion. The immediate chaos has peaked. People stop running because there is nowhere left to go. But the consequences are only beginning to unfurl. Fires burn unchecked in neighborhoods where hydrants no longer work. Bridges, damaged by shockwaves and neglect, sag under stranded traffic. Hospitals overflow, operating on generators that tick down precious minutes of fuel. Doctors choose who receives care and who waits. Communication fractures as cell towers lose power and networks collapse under overload. Rumors spread faster than facts. Trust evaporates. The social contract, the quiet daily agreement that rules will be followed and help will come, has been tested under pressure and found wanting. People sit in darkened rooms, clutching children, partners, parents. Candles flicker against walls that once held televisions and framed photos. They listen to the wind, to distant sirens, to the occasional dull thud that may or may not mean something worse. They do not know if more strikes are coming. They do not know if emergency services still exist. They do not know if the government functions beyond radio silence and broken signals. Uncertainty becomes its own form of terror. They only know that the world of 1 hour ago is gone. The world of coffee shops opening at dawn, of traffic jams and routine frustrations, of calendars and appointments and small complaints. It did not fade gradually. It did not decline over years. It ended. Abruptly, violently, completely. The contrast is unbearable, the memory of normal life now sharper than any pain. Outside, the skyline is darker than anyone alive has ever seen it. Stars emerge over cities that once erased them. The beauty feels obscene. Somewhere, someone cries. Somewhere else, someone laughs hysterically. Somewhere, someone decides to take what they can, while others decide to share what little remains. Humanity fractures into its most basic instincts. The first hour of nuclear war does not conclude with resolution. There is no victory, no closure, no explanation that makes sense of what has happened. It concludes with realization. The realization that survival is no longer guaranteed. That safety was always an illusion, carefully maintained by systems no one fully understood. That the infrastructure, the laws, the institutions designed to protect are fragile beyond comprehension. In 60 minutes, the pillars of modern life have crumbled. What remains is not a functioning society, but a scattered collection of individuals terrified, stunned, awake in a world that no longer obeys familiar rules. They wait in the dark, counting breaths, listening for dawn, unsure whether it will come at all. The mushroom clouds still rise, the fallout still drifts, the fires still burn, and somewhere in a bunker deep underground, decisions are being made. Decisions about retaliation, about escalation, about whether there will be a second hour. But for now, in this moment, the first hour ends not with answers, but with a single terrible question. What comes next?